There's an argument that breaks out at every dinner table in Britain, and it always has the same two sides. Someone says rent is dead money. Someone else says they'd rather rent and invest the difference. Both of them are completely certain. Neither of them has ever checked. Because here's the thing about this argument. It has an answer. Prices, rents, mortgage rates, they're all public record. You can actually run the tape. So that's exactly what we're going to do. One person, split into two, on the same street, in June 2016. One buys, one rents and invests. 10 years of real numbers, no guessing, and a scoreboard along the way. And I'll tell you now, both sides of that dinner table are wrong, and the real answer turns on a question neither of them is asking. So, meet the two of you. It's June 2016, and you're standing outside a two-bed with a for-sale board and a to-let board side by side. Buyer U goes in. Average first-time buyer price back then, £167,000. You've scraped together the 10% deposit, £16,700, and after stamp duty, the survey and the solicitor, you're in for about £18,500 of cash and a 25-year mortgage on the rest. Renter. You looks at the same street and says no thanks. You keep that £18,500, put every penny of it into a global index fund, and rent the same kind of two-bed for £880 a month. Same job, same salary, same street. Before we run it, do the brave thing, pick your winner, and hold it. Year 1, and the first scoreboard lands, and it breaks the argument already. Buyer U's mortgage payment, £685 a month. Add the maintenance and the building's insurance the renter never pays, call it £77, and Buyer U's all-in cost is about £760. Renter U is paying £880. Read that again. The buyer is living cheaper. From day one. And that quietly destroys the whole renter's game plan, because rent and invest the difference needs there to be a difference. Rent cheaper, mortgage dearer, gap invested. In this decade, that gap never existed. Not in year 1. Not in any year. For 10 straight years, the person with the spare cash each month was the buyer. If anyone was investing a difference, it should have been him. And for a while, it only gets better for him. Rates keep falling. In 2018, Buyer U remortgages at 2%. In 2020, 1.4%. The payment drops to £604 while Renter U's rent creeps up to £940. Then 2021 happens. The stamp duty holiday, the race for space, and the house jumps almost 13% in a single year. It's now worth £207,000. Buyer U starts checking the app just to feel something. Renter U's fund is quietly compounding too, but nobody at the dinner table asks about that. Then comes the bit everyone remembers. 2022. The mini-budget. Rates go vertical, the news is all doom, and this, surely, is where Buyer U gets destroyed. 2-year fixes that were 1.4% hit 5%, then 6% at the peak in the summer of 2023. Here's what actually happened, and it's the most undertold mechanic in British housing. 10 years of forced repayments had quietly shrunk Buyer U's loan from 90% of the house to about 55%, and lenders price by how deep your equity is. So when the storm hit, Buyer U didn't reprice as the stretched borrower who bought in 2016. He repriced as a 55% borrower, on the cheapest shelf in the shop. The payment rose, yes, to about £809. Painful. And still below Renter U's rent, which by 2024 had climbed past £1,100, because the same crisis that hit mortgages hit rents harder. And one sliding door sentence worth holding on to. The version of you who just took boring 5-year fixes slept through the entire crisis on 1.6%, and beat the clever rate chaser by £7,500. Summer 2026, 10 years. Final scoreboard. Renter, you first. The £18,500 went into a global index fund at the start and stayed there, through one of the best stock market decades in modern history. It more than tripled. The pot, about £62,000, genuinely good. Now Buyer U. The house, £228,000, still owed, £102. Equity, £125,791. Double the renter, before we even count the monthly surplus. And if Buyer U had invested that surplus, the months where his costs ran below the rent, he'd be at nearly £174,000. The gap, over £111,000. And here's the twist of the knife. Add up every pound that left each of their accounts across the decade, and Renter U paid more cash than the buyer, nearly £9,000 more, and finished with half as much. The dinner table has its answer. Buying one, buy a street. Except, run the exact same tape 90 minutes down the M4 in London, and everything reverses. London buyer, you paid £436,000 for an average first home, nearly £12,000 in stamp duty alone, and then watched London prices do something nobody believed possible, almost nothing. 6.6% growth in an entire decade, below inflation. Meanwhile, London renter, you kept a £56,000 lump out of the deposit and fees. And here's the twist inside the twist. In 6 of the 10 years, London buying cost more per month than London renting. The only place in Britain where the renters invest the difference plan actually existed is the place where it worked. Final London scoreboard. The renter finishes about 12 grand ahead. Same country, same decade, same strategy. Opposite answer. That's the question the dinner table never asks. Not renting or buying. Where? And one more thing before the autopsy, because someone at the dinner table is already saying it. The renter just got unlucky. If the market had done better, he'd have won. No, run it. His fund actually got one of the best decades in stock market history, about 13% a year, a number no regulator would let anyone project forward. To catch the buyer, he needed 21% a year, every single year, and making the market better doesn't even help him, because the buyer is the one holding spare cash every month to invest. On this national example, for the renter to win, it wasn't the stock market that needed to change, it was house prices. They needed to finish below their 2016 level, not grow slower, fall, over 10 years, and stay fallen. They rose 36%. That's how lopsided the last decade's tape really was, and it's exactly why you shouldn't assume the next one looks the same. So what actually decided this? Time for the autopsy, and both sides lose a sacred cow. Rent is dead money. True. Renter, you burned £119,000 on rent, every penny unrecoverable. But buyer, you burn money too, and nobody puts it on a poster. 34 grand of mortgage interest, plus the maintenance, the insurance, the stamp duty and the fees. £45,500, gone. Nothing to show for it. 41 pence of every pound the buyer spent was just as dead as rent. Renting isn't dead money versus alive money. It's 119 grand of dead money versus 45. And now the buyer's sacred cow. Property made me rich, did it? Crack open that 125 grand of equity. 61,000 came from the market going up. Everything else, the deposit and 48,000 of repayments, was buyer U's own money, that the mortgage forced him to save month after month, whether he felt like it or not. Less than half was bricks. More than half was a direct debit he wasn't allowed to skip. And that is the real mechanism hiding under this entire argument. A mortgage is a savings machine with a house attached. The official data backs it up. Half of renters have less than £1,000 invested, but before homeowners feel smug, only 4 in 10 of them invest anything either. Most of us are less disciplined than we think. The buyer just has a machine that doesn't care. Which brings us to right now, because if you're watching this about to sprint to a viewing, wait. Run today's tape first. The same average first home is now £228,000. Put down 10% at today's rates, and the all-in monthly cost is about £1,300 against a rent of £1,270 for the same home. Buying now starts dearer than renting, the exact opposite of 2016. And inside that first payment, 73 pence of every pound is pure interest, versus about 48 for the 2016 buyer. The 2016 head start, cheaper from day one, is gone. For today's buyer to repeat that result, prices need to do the next decade what they did last decade, and nobody knows that in either direction. 2 more things have genuinely changed. Affordability is actually improving. Since 2021, wages are up 25% and prices only 5%, so the wait is finally paying the patient. And as of May 2026, no-fault eviction is abolished in England. The strongest card in the buying deck, the landlord can just throw you out, left the table 3 months ago. The tape from 2016 has a clear winner. The tape from 2026 is genuinely open. So, 3 checks before you pick a side of the dinner table again. 1. Run your local tape, because the national average nearly sent London buyers off a cliff. Mortgage payment on the home you'd buy, plus about 80 quid a month for upkeep and insurance, against the real rent of the same home, in your postcode. Whichever side is cheaper, that side holds the difference, and the difference is the whole game. 2. Remember the boring version of you. Certainty beat cleverness by 7.5 grand last decade. If a rate jump would genuinely break your month, a longer fix is you buying sleep, and sleep was underpriced last time. 3. And this is the one that actually decides your future. If you rent, look at your banking app and answer honestly. Is there a standing order into investments that leaves the day after payday, every month, no exceptions? If yes, you already own the buyer's superpower, without the boiler bills. If no, then be honest about what you're really choosing between. It's not renting versus buying, it's a machine that forces you to build wealth, versus a plan that trusts you to. 10 years of data just told you how that trust usually goes, because both sides of the dinner table were wrong. Rent is dead money, and so was 41% of everything the buyer paid. Invest the difference, except the difference belonged to the other side. The winner of the decade wasn't bricks, and it wasn't the market, it was the machine, the direct debit that didn't ask how he felt. Get the machine, with a house attached or without one. If you want to see what those mortgage letters did to whole households, the middle class episode is the other half of this story. And the 10 grand video shows you how to build the machine with no house at all.